Oh. We let go. For this 1 hour, may we let go of our anxieties, our fears, our anger, our self-doubts and our regrets, our pet grievances and our distractions. If only for this 1 hour, let the flame of this chalice burn them from our hearts and minds and light our way to peace and serenity for this one holy hour. And now if we can do our covenant in unison, please. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant. And now we will have the offering. Please give generously.
Before we do our hymn, Marva was to play this morning. Keep her in mind. She has COVID. So she's looking forward to joining us again on the 17th. But in the meantime, Joan has agreed to help us with the introduction. You know these hymns, so especially on the second one, anytime you can come up with harmony. The first hymn is 128. We want to stand for that. And this is doesn't have much harmony written in it. If you want to harmonize, you can feel free. Let's stand, please. Okay. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For our life is a gift, which we are called to use to build the common good and make our lives glad. For needs which are the same For services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and life, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow, despair, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful years that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise for all that is our gift, which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. Thank you. Lisa.
Good morning. Was waiting for the introduction, but I guess I didn't get one this morning. Here I am. First time in my life I've ever been speechless. I am here again, as you can see, and I thank you for the invitation. I don't know if anybody else noticed I don't know, irony, symbolism, whatever. We're giving loose change to Humane Society, and right before we began, there was a cat out there, so thought that was interesting. Thank you again for having me. I'm going to have you do something for me a little bit later, there's the cat. Kind of make it interactive. Well, it's a big cat. He's friendly. Well, better than a church mouse. And there may have been one till several years ago. Don and I went for a walk in our small town of Millersburg. And as we were walking down the street, we saw a dog coming towards us, male dog. And we know that because he went to a yard and did his business. Number one, welcome to X-Rated Sunday. And he got stopped and stared at us. And I'm not a mean person, but I got to tell you, this was the ugliest dog I've ever seen in my life. So I turned to Don and I said, he is ugly. And she looked at me and said, probably thinking the same thing about you. Going on 31 years of marriage. Will there be 32? So what do you do with that? Tell people. In the Hindu religion, whatever you do in this life, good or bad, you experience to some extent in the next life. So I figured if I were a Hindu, I'd probably come back as a dog. But not just as a dog, as an ugly dog. And not just as an ugly dog, but one even uglier than the one I just told you about. So, I wasn't going to, the reason I mentioned that is that you and I know people, relatives, friends, acquaintances, who would have become very angry at a comment like that. Simple, innocent comment. Not only do we know people who would have gotten very angry about a comment like that, but that anger in some cases would have manifested in some type of aggression, some type of violence. We see that quite often in domestic violence situations, don't we? Somebody says something that somebody doesn't like, may have been said in jest, maybe not, but the anger, the emotion, the impulse would have arisen, and some type of aggression, some type of violence would have occurred. I wasn't going to preach about anger today, but the last time I was here, I was involved in a conversation out in the fellowship area. And the lady who was in that conversation talked about how she noticed that people seem to be so angry today and so mean and so hostile. Not everybody, but many. And we've all noticed that. But I want to tell you, that's not just something that's happened within the last 4 or 5 or 6 years. That has been going on for quite some time. In the early 2000s, when we lived in Franklin, Indiana, I was serving a congregation. I noticed it back then. And I mentioned it to Don. I said, have you ever noticed the anger in people, the look of anger on their faces? And I suggested that the next time we go out, just look at people, and you'll see so many of them look so angry. You bump into people, and they just look at you with this weird, horribly hostile look. And where do we see that a lot nowadays? We see that in traffic. You don't get your foot off the brake fast enough. When the light changes, you're going to get somebody behind you blowing their horn. And when you look in the rearview mirror, you're going to see language from the mouth. You know what they're saying, gestures. And then they'll pass you. Seems like they're flooring it, and as they pass you, they look at you, and they're yelling at you, giving you gestures again, and then cutting you off. Such anger, such hostility, road rage. And there are times when we experience that where we would look at people and go, like, what are you doing? And I suggested to Donna that we stop doing that. That we stop responding, we stop reacting, because if they're that angry, think about it. After July 1st, what happened? Everybody 18 and above in the state of Indiana can own a handgun. Can you imagine a handgun in the hands of some of these people? I can't. I don't want to. So I told Don it's best for us just not to respond or to react. Just ignore it and go on. Anger is a big problem. Now, when I talk to you about anger this morning, I'm not going to get anything deep. I'm not going to talk about anything clinical. You know, brain damage where people have impulse control issues, maybe physiological stuff going on, maybe some medications they're on that make it hard to control impulse control, but I don't want to get into that. I'm going to talk about everyday, normal people like you and me. I know I put myself in the normal category. We can pretend. Everyday, normal people who at times in our lives struggle managing or controlling our anger. But before I do that, I want to do this. If you want to play along, that's fine. I would like you to, on your sheet of paper, if you have a pen, or you can do it mentally, or you can get out your phone. Yes, you can have your phone on in church. Get the calculator and just go through it here. I'm going to read some statements. If they apply to you, Just check it. And then you can add up later. You can do it mentally if you. Tension mounts within me as I tackle a demanding task. I feel frustrated event. I may obsessively ponder how I must manage it. Sometimes I walk in another direction to avoid seeing someone I don't like. When discussing a controversial topic, my tone of voice is likely to become passionate and strong. I can accept a person who admits his or her mistakes, but I have a hard time accepting someone who refuses to admit his or her own weaknesses. When I talk about my irritations, I don't really want to hear an opposite point of view, about halfway there. It's hard for me to forget when someone does me wrong. When someone confronts me from a misinformed position, I'm thinking of my rebuttal as he or she speaks. Sometimes my discouragement wants to make me quit. I can be quite aggressive in my business pursuits or even when playing a game just for fun. I struggle emotionally with the things in life that aren't fair. Although I know it may not be right, I sometimes blame others for my problems. When someone openly speaks ill of me, my natural response is to think of how I can defend myself. Just a few more. Sometimes I speak slanderously about a person, not really caring how it may harm his or her reputation. I may act kindly on the outside while feeling frustrated on the inside. Sarcasm is a trait I use in expressing humor. When someone else is clearly annoyed at me, I too easily jump into the conflict. At times, I struggle with moods of depression or discouragement. Two more. I have been known to take an I don't care attitude toward the needs of others. And finally, when I am in an authority role, I sometimes speak too sternly or too insensitively. If you got 10 or more, your anger level is probably more constant than you would like. If you got 15 or more, you probably experience a lot of disappointments or feel disappointed a lot, or you have a lot of irritations and feel annoyed a lot. Anger is not an unhealthy emotion. None of the feelings and emotions that we have are necessarily bad. None of them are necessarily harmful. The problem with anger is not that we get angry about certain things. It's that we don't at times manage the anger or control the anger effectively. And what happens in those situations is if we don't manage or control our anger, it will manage or control us. And if we don't deal with it effectively, we find ourselves not being very happy people, and we find ourselves at times not able to manage the other emotions and feelings that we have. So we have to ask the reasons of why we get so angry. And I'm not talking about justifiable anger. I'm not talking about those of us who get angry when we see injustice. Those of us who get angry when things don't seem to go the way that they should based on the moral and ethical principles of the world. Injustice, discrimination, animal cruelty, domestic violence. We are to get angry at things like that. If we don't get angry about those kinds of things, there's something else going on other than not controlling our emotions. I'm talking about those times when we get angry seemingly for no real reason. Or perhaps we get angry for something that doesn't make a whole lot of difference one way or the other. We just fly off the handle. We blow up. We lose our cool. We blow our top, blow our stack. Whatever expression we want to use. We find ourselves getting angry over small things, simple things. They really have no relevance in our lives one way or the other. And what are the reasons for those? First of all, we get frustrated too easily. That's called a low frustration tolerance. We just don't have the patience that either we need to have or that we would like to have. That low frustration tolerance. And I'm going to guess that there are quite a few people in here this morning who could probably identify with that. We get frustrated too easily. We haven't learned to develop and to build a high frustration tolerance. And there's several ways that we can do that. It may seem kind of odd this morning, but as we think about it after today, it really kind of makes sense on how to build a high frustration tolerance. I've suggested to people that I work with in the counseling practice that what you can do is you can find times when you know that you just get frustrated too easily. You learn how to purposely frustrate yourself. And you can build frustration tolerance by doing that. I've suggested to people when you go shopping, stand in a longer line than usual. And each time you go back, stand in another line longer than usual. I know it sounds silly, it sounds simple, but I'm going to tell you it works. And a client said, you know, that's a good idea. I think I get so frustrated when I'm in traffic. I'm just going to go get in long lines of traffic. I said, please don't do that. I don't want a road rage situation on my hand. And another guy said, you know, when I call my mom, she just talks and talks and talks and talks. And I just get so frustrated. I think I'm just going to call her from now on and just see how long I can stay on each time. That worked for him. That worked for him. So purposely frustrate yourself. Find things that you do get frustrated about and go do them. And see if you can build up your level of frustration. We get angry because of what's called ego disturbance. It's a term from Albert Ellis, the psychologist who developed rational emotive therapy, rational emotive behavior therapy, REBT. He said we get angry a lot because we feel like we're being attacked. Somebody says something and we feel like they're attacking us. They're attacking our ego. They're attacking our humanity. So we get angry. We express something and somebody says, oh, really? And then we feel like they're calling us a liar. So we get angry. We give an opinion about something and says, oh, you're wrong. We get angry. We just expressed an opinion, and so did they. But our ego gets in the way so many times in life. And when that ego gets in the way, then we feel disturbed, then we feel angry, and then we have the outburst, that ego disturbance. A lot of the reasons we get angry too, faulty thinking. Faulty thinking. Our thinking can do us tremendous harm. Because basically, Other than breathing, all we do is think. And our thoughts can get away with us. Our thoughts can cause us a tremendous amount of misery and upset. And a lot of that's due to our faulty thinking. For instance, one example of faulty thinking is thinking everybody ought to be like us, ought to believe like us. And we get upset when we give an opinion and people disagree with us. We get angry about that. Yet they have the same right as we to have an opinion. But that's what we do, don't we? Many of us get upset because we want people to think like us, be like us, believe like us, behave like us. And there are people who get angry when they see people who don't. Faulty thinking. Faulty thinking because people don't meet our demands. They should do what we say. We demand things of people. And if they don't follow through, we get angry. Albert Ellis calls that the three must, that demanding language. You must, you should, you have to. Why? Because you think they should? And if they don't, we get angry? The three must, he says, I must do well. You must treat me well. Life must be fair. Really? Because we think it should? The psychiatrist Karen Horney calls that the tyranny of the shoulds. How we should ourselves to death. Make sure you understood the word. But we do that. You should, you should, you should. You must, you have to. Ellis says we should use preferential language. I would like to be treated well. I would like to do well. I wish life were fair. I wish you would do so and so. I would like you to do so and so. It's less demanding, less a feeling of pressure and obligation when we use preferential language. And then we get angry because certain people don't meet our expectations. And we all have expectations on people, don't we? Expectations on ourselves. And in many cases, those expectations are way too high. We place high expectations on ourselves and on other people. We do that a lot to our children, don't we? We do that a lot to our children. And if they don't do what we say, if they don't become what we want them to become, we get angry. I've had cases where numerous family members have come to me because they were so angry that their children didn't do what they wanted them to do professionally. As if they didn't have a choice. Many years ago, I pastored a church in Michigan. And I had a young girl, single mom, started coming to church there. Came for a whole year, never missed a Sunday. Took her in as a member on Sunday morning, Easter Sunday. Never saw her again. After a couple of weeks, I gave her a call, asked if I'd come talk to her. Said, sure. She was reared a Roman Catholic. Confirmed, baptized, went through all the liturgy and things to become a Roman Catholic. And she said her father told her after she told him she joined our church, you're a Catholic. You will not go. This is a grown woman. You will not go to that church again. And if you do, I will cut you out of the will. She did not live up or meet his expectations to remain a Roman Catholic the rest of her life. Nothing against the Catholic Church. He would have had this attitude no matter what denomination he was or she would have been reared in. So please don't misunderstand me. We place expectations on people that we have no right to place on them. And if they don't meet those expectations, we get very angry. And then we get angry when people don't listen to us. There are a number of us who always like to give advice to everybody. Unsolicited advice. And when people don't take that advice, we get very, very angry because we know best. We hardly know what's best for ourselves, much less other people. But we think we do. And when they don't listen, we get very angry. Another reason that we get of all the people in here, they singled me out to bump into. Somebody cuts us off in traffic, they take it personally. They pick me. They purposely cut me off. Many of us are like that, aren't we? We think people are purposely trying to hurt us, harm us, inconvenience us. And when we have that feeling, we get very, very angry. So how do we respond to that? We respond to anger in one of several ways, and then we're going to talk about ways to effectively manage our anger. Because they don't express it, because they don't show it, because they don't talk about it. But it's in there, and it's eating them up. It's eating them up. And eventually they're going to blow. But in the process of suppressing it and holding it in and letting them eating it up, what happens? Physiologically, we develop colitis, migraines, heart attacks, all kinds of physical ailments, because we have suppressed that anger and held that anger in for so long. And we tell people everything's fine. We're doing great. We never get angry. Nothing bothers me. We're not only lying to them, more importantly, we're lying to ourselves. And then we express it in an aggressive way. Yelling and screaming and throwing, and acts of violence. Leo Held, from a small town in Pennsylvania a number of years ago, held his anger in for a long time. And then he couldn't hold it in any longer. So he went from suppression to aggression. He believed that one of the people he shared a ride with, one of his neighbors, and several of his supervisors at work had it in for him. He felt that they were always saying things and doing things to him to hurt him. And he held that in for a long time, then one day he just blew. And then it developed and manifested into aggression. So I went to work. He shot several supervisors. Went back to his community, went and shot the neighbor that he thought was out to get him. Went to an employee's business and shot her. She was the one who shared the ride with him because he thought she was after him, out to get him. All those years of holding that in, not dealing with it effectively, and now it manifested in aggression and people were hurt. We see that a lot on the road rage, that aggression. We see it in sports. How many times have we seen fist fights break out at ball games, football games, baseball games? We saw a classic example of this aggression several years ago during the Mike Tyson Evander Holyfield fight. Remember that? Where Tyson was losing that fight. He got angry. You could see it on his face. And what did he do? He bit off a part of Evander Holyfield's ear. That's how he dealt with his anger. Not once, but twice. He bit it again after the referee stopped the fight for a few moments and cautioned him. That aggression. And then we deal with anger passively aggressively, don't we? We don't really express it. We don't really suppress it. We feel like, well, we'll get even. Partner goes to the store. Would you like me to bring you something? Yes. Would you bring me such and such? About an hour, the partner comes back. The other person says, did you get my, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. No, you didn't forget. You were mad at this person, and this is how you got back. This is how you expressed your anger. So, what do? When we struggle managing our anger, when we struggle controlling our anger? First of all, we have to build that high frustration tolerance. And I've already given you a way to do that. Second thing we do, we can employ a technique called the STOC technique. Before we say anything, before we do anything, stop, think of consequences. If I say this, if I do this, what is likely to happen? Think of all of the situations, the examples that I just gave. What if these people had thought about it? If I do this, what's likely going to happen? Now, there are going to be those rare instances where people aren't going to care about the consequences. But again, I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about people like you, the everyday, ordinary, normal people who struggle at times managing our anger. If we just stop and think of the consequences, that could be very helpful. Then, when we're really angry, we could do some deep breathing. And that's something that we can do with any emotion. Just take some time to engage in some deep breathing. The 4-4-6. Slowly breathe in for 4 seconds through your nose. Hold it for 4 seconds. Then exhale through your mouth for 6 seconds. And do this a number of times. Be repetitive. Because that activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which slows down breathing, slows down the heart rate. And you know, when we're angry, we breathe heavily. When we're angry, our heart beats fast. So if we engage in this deep breathing exercise, we could calm ourselves down and maybe not explode in anger when we do feel that urge to do so. There's something else we could do along those lines. It's called a grounding exercise. You go outside, work on the senses. If we can calm the 5 senses, we can generally calm the emotions. And you can do this in any order. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to start with the eyes. Look around. Look at the beauty of nature. Look at the things that really appeal to you when you look at it. Notice the beauty of it, how you enjoy observing it. And focus on 5 things. Take some time to focus on each. And then you can close your eyes and smell 4 things that you really like to smell out in nature. Maybe somebody's burning something. Maybe there's freshly cut grass, whatever. A tree that has a scent. And focus on those 4 things. Take time with each one. Then you can listen to 3 things you like to hear. Maybe a bird chirping or whatever. Focus on each one of those 3. Then touch 2 things that you really like to touch. 2 things that feel good. Tree bark, the grass. And then end it all, number 1. And whatever order you do, I always suggest number 1 is you go back inside and you put something in your mouth that tastes good. Does 2 things. You can be proud that you've done the exercise, and 2, you end it feeling good because something's tasting good. We all like that, surely. So that's what I would suggest. And then when we struggle, finally, when we struggle with someone who we feel like is saying something we don't like, or they're attacking us or insulting us, always ask for clarification. Never jump to any conclusions. Never engage in mind reading. And you know what that is. Oh, so you think, well, maybe he doesn't or she doesn't, or they don't. Ask for clarification. That is a technique that we don't use a lot in our society, because we like to jump to conclusions. We like to think they're just doing this to us. They're purposely insulting us. They're purposely irritating me. Ask for clarification. Am I understanding you correctly when you said? Can you explain what you said? I'm not sure I quite got it. And you know why we don't want to do that? Because then we're going to engage in another thinking error where we're going to think if we ask questions, then they're going to think we're stupid. Not necessarily. And if they do, so what? People have a right to think what they want to think. If you allow that to bother you, then we're responsible for that. One more thing before I go, and this is going to be somewhat controversial, and that's okay. You know, we hear a lot of people say, well, he made me angry. She made me angry. It made me angry. Nothing can make you angry. Anger is a choice. If somebody can make us angry, then why can't they immediately make us unangry? Because it's a choice. Let me give you an example of how we are in control of our feelings. Nobody can dictate our feelings. Say it's farming season, in the middle of farming season right now. It's pouring down rain. The farmer's happy. Planting seed, he's happy. The golfer's angry. It's the same rain. If the rain can make the farmer happy, why can't it make the golfer happy? Because each has chosen his or her or their feeling. They have chosen how to react or respond. Amen.
The Finlandia tune, number 159. Would you please stand? This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
And now may we go forward, being grateful and thankful for what we have. And may we be mindful of those who continue to struggle with handling difficult emotions. Amen.